Okay, it looks like we are live. It is 4:00 p.m. Eastern time, and I know that because that's what my spring drive diver says, and that's what my computer says. Spot on to the second. And I have not heard from Clive, so I don't know if he's going to come in or not. That's the History Channel, by the way, in the background. I just watched a thing on forging blades. When I'm down here at the Durwood Estate, I do watch the TV to see what people are consuming, because I don't have it up north, and I don't have it at my place down in Sarasota. This is the only place that we actually pay for the cable TV. And so when I'm down here, I do tend to have it on because I want to see what normal people are consuming. And from watching the commercials and different things, I can see why some estimates say that 2/3 of Americans are broke. I've seen that it's about a half, but it's somewhere between half and 2/3 have no net worth. And if you watch the commercials on these channels, they're all selling you no money down, buy the car, get your new car today, skip the first payment, all of this stuff. And so it's clear to me that people have succumbed to just living with debt. And so it's appropriate that we talk a little bit about watches and purchasing watches. And the other reason that I titled this stream the way I did is I had a comment from someone, and he just replied again to the comment, and it just further illustrates the thought process of these people that it's not healthy. Again, we've talked many times about Rolexes holding their value, and the argument that I would make is that doesn't matter, because if you're buying a Rolex brand new and you have to worry about it holding its value, then you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. You can't afford the watch. Now, if you're in the business of buying and selling watches, like Clive, I get the impression that he gets good deals on the watches that he buys. He's a sharp purchaser, right? Just like with real estate, the money is made at the buy in real estate. Same thing with a watch. If you can get the watch cheap enough, then you're going to be in a good position if you do decide to sell it to make a profit, and you could build a little business out of that. There's another YouTuber that goes around to pawn shops, and he really knows his watches, and he goes around to pawn shops and he buys at pawn shops, and he gets good deals on like Datejusts or whatever, right? He fixes them up a little bit. He also has some skills in that area, and then he resells them. Now that's fantastic. If you can be in that business, if you will, of buying low and selling high. I'm not talking about sitting on the watch for a long period of time, waiting for it to go up. I'm talking about buying it, detailing it up a little bit, and at some point reselling it. So let me talk about this comment and why I think it illustrates, and this is Sam, I'm not going to say his last name, but why I think it illustrates what we're talking about. And he had made a comment about how Rolexes will hold their value much better than a Grand Seiko. And he compared the Rolex to a Toyota and the Grand Seiko to a Hyundai or something, that loses value. And I replied back to him and basically said that if you have to worry about that, you shouldn't be buying the watch in the first place. And so he replied, I was speaking on a purely fiscal aspect in relation to resale. If you were to buy a steel sports Rolex and a similar style watch and a GS, a Grand Seiko, your Rolex, and he, misspelled that. He put UR, U''RE instead of your, YOUR, but anyway, public education. Rolex might actually have appreciated in value. I would find it hard to believe that the same could be said fiscally for GS. Nothing wrong with the GS as a timekeeping piece, as there is nothing wrong with a Hyundai vehicle. Well, that's not true. Hyundai vehicles give more trouble than Toyotas. I'd much rather buy the Toyota. It's a better car. So he's wrong there. That being said, if I was going to turn my cars, watches over on a regular basis, a Steel Sports Rolex as a Toyota will retain much more of its fiscal value. He's trying to be sophisticated, I guess. I think you will see, if you read the article below, that Japanese cars do keep their value, and that Grand Seiko is not mentioned as a brand that retains compared to a Rolex. I've always enjoyed a good conversation and horological education. Okay, so here you go, Sam. Okay, let me just try to educate you on this. You're wrong on just about all these points. These kinds of arguments that you're making is why half or 2/3 of people are broke, okay? They justify buying a watch, for example, a new sports Rolex, for full list price or more than that, by saying that, oh, it's going to hold its value. You'd be much better off taking that money and investing it in something that is actually a real investment. Like right now, the stock market's down. Apple stock is way down. Maybe buy some Apple stock. I don't buy individual stocks. I buy mutual funds, but same thing. Buy a mutual fund and hold it for the long term. I've already talked about it's very rare for watches to double every 7 years in value. And that's what long-term investments that return about 10% will do. They'll double every 7 years. So you are falling into the consumer trap of justifying your purchase that you want to make for whatever reasons and acting like it's a good financial move. It's not a good financial move, okay? Buying a new Rolex or a new Grand Seiko that you can't afford is not a good financial move. Now, if you're somebody that's dealing in the watches, if you're buying them cheap, fixing them up, buying it from a pawn shop that may not be aware of the real value or whatever, buying it from a private individual who wants cash and you happen to have some cash, and then you can buy it right and you can resell it, that's a horse of a different color. That's not looking at the watch as an investment. That's looking at the watch as an opportunity to make a profit. Just like if you were to buy a used Toyota from a little old lady with low mileage, garage kept, and you got a decent buy on it, and then you were able to clean it up some and resell it for a profit. That's out there hustling, making things happen. That's being a rainmaker. That's all good. We did that back in the day, and I did that. But to justify the purchase of a new Rolex because it's going to go up in value, like I've said before, a lot of people are going to get nailed and caught holding the bag on that one. So let's see if we have any comments on this. And I don't see any emails. Let me check to see if Clive has emailed me before I do that. Okay, no, I don't think he has. So let me go to the comments here. Whoops, I got to stop that from playing. Okay, there we go. So, Brocus Pocus, cool. All right, Merry Christmas, Craig. Thanks for the outstanding content. Well, a lot of people don't like, my content, but if I save somebody from financial ruin, if I just save one person, and then it's probably worth it. First time joining you live, Craig, from Lake Freeman in North Central Indiana. All right, on the lake, absolutely. Good move, our wags. Feliz Navidad. There we go. Brocus Pocus, Turkey Vulture. Craig, you just walked into apartment from my Saturday shop. Just walked into apartment from my Saturday shopping, Cook County, Illinois. sales tax. Yeah, the sales tax is a pain, isn't it? Brian, LOL. Craig, what would you recommend me do? My double-breasted Buxothers suit has been in use for 26 days straight, and my boss is giving me the ultimatum: lose the suit or lose my pizza delivery job. Man, I thought you were raking in the tips. Cut him in on the tips, right? If you're making a lot more money in tips, you cut him in a little bit here and there, give him a little spiff. He'll be tickled pink. And as far as wearing the same one for 26 days straight, this is a great time of the year to go to some of the Goodwills and get yourself another suit cheap. Because here's the thing, the yamokes out there, they're not buying them. They don't give a rat's rear end about a suit, right? So you can buy a high-end, like a H. Freeman or Hickey Freeman, you know, a high-end suit, dirt cheap, right? But here's the deal. Try to find one that'll fit you, because tailoring costs are not cheap, right? So try to find one that the sleeves are the right length, that everything is the waist in the pants is correct, and so that you don't have to do anything to it. If you look around, you'll probably find something. You might find 2 or 3 that were donated by the same person, right? That happen to be your size. You get lucky. So that'd be my recommendation on that. Glad to see you got a haircut, Craig. You were starting to look like one of those flaming liberal hippies. Yeah, my hair is a disaster. You know, the way I've been losing it, and it's all just kind of, it sticks out, and it's a mess. But that's what it is. I've been losing it for 30, 40 years. So Rolex. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the liberals and hippies too, because I saw a commercial that was obviously targeted towards them. We need liberals, hippies. Someone has to make my latte. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I can't afford a Rolex. Your comment certainly helped me release. I need to be sensible with my money. Good move, Simon. Simon, maybe you can find a deal at a pawn shop, get like a Datejust or something like that, cheap, and then resell it, make a nice profit, and just do that. And just kind of be in the business where the watch on your wrist is kind of like your rolling inventory, if you will. And that way you're basically wearing a Rolex for free and you're making money on it. That might be something to think about. You know, because you're into this and you probably have some knowledge and so forth that can be leveraged into profit. A Rolex should be at the bottom of everyone's expense list. Hello, Mr. Craig. Well, there you go. Okay, so let's talk about the hippies. So I saw this commercial. It was for, is it Crown Royal? Yeah, I think Crown Royal Liquor here on the TV. And they're talking about, you don't need a car, you don't need this. And the guy's like walking with a bag, you know, the Crown Royal comes in a bag. He's walking with that, and he's walking down the street, and he's like helping people out with some things. He's like a real nice guy, just a super nice guy, right? And he walks, and he goes home to his mom's, and she's got all this food or whatever, and he's got the Crown Royal, you know, and then they enjoy a drink of Crown Royal together. And the implication is, you don't need a car, you don't need a house, you don't need any of this stuff. You just need to be nice and have Crown Royal, right? This is like this tiny house movement, right? Where everybody wants a super tiny house because they don't have any money. And of course, this is somebody who likes to travel on a motor coach, which is a tiny house, right? But to make the argument that you're going to do that because it's cheap and because you're going to live on less and all this, one of the easiest ways to build wealth is with real estate and buy a house and buy it right. Your starter house, right? Buy it cheap, and then put some elbow grease into it, right? Work, make it nice, get a fixer-upper, and then flip that and get a nicer house and just work your way up. And a lot of people can build wealth that way. So, again, the message in this commercial was don't do that, right? And so a lot of these people that are broke, they're getting all the wrong messages, and they're not getting educated in public schools either. They're not explaining how all this stuff works either. People always want what they can't have. Well, like I say, we got a consumer society going on here, and everybody's barraged with all these advertisements all the time, telling them they need this stuff. Many women I want, I can't have. You'd be surprised. The really gorgeous women, I mean, really smoking hot and nice, I'm not talking about, the ones that are hell on wheels. I'm talking about, nice, really attractive. You'd be surprised. You go up and ask them out, they'll say yes because nobody asks them out, because they figure that they'll always say no. So they don't get asked out that often because they're so attractive. And you ask them out and they might say yes. Okay, so it'd probably help if you were dressed halfway decent, though. Okay. I'm on my way purchasing a third house and still don't have a Rolex. There you go, Simon. Absolutely. Real estate is key. The only tiny house I will buy will be a Prevost. There you go. Absolutely, R-Wags. That's my next coach. This is going to be a Prevost. I got some eyes on some of them. If everything goes well, I'll probably make a move this summer on getting one and hopefully be able to winter in Florida next year, get back to my routine, which was interrupted the last 2 years. Detroit and Cleveland are identical places where people fix up dilapidated bungalows and flip them. Chicago is the same with brownstones and row houses. Well, there you go. Yeah, you find an area that's in transition, right? And you get in there and you make a buy, and you work your butt off, and absolutely. And don't watch TV and all that stuff while everybody else is watching TV. You're scraping the windows, right? And refinishing stuff and bringing the hardwood floors back. And you're doing something productive while everybody else is not. So there's that. We will have to wait for the bubble to burst, hopefully soon. The Rolex bubble, I guess he's talking about. Well, there are some Rolexes that are affordable right now. We talked about the Turnograph the other day, a lot of date justs. So apparent Rolex bubble prices to crash. Yeah, at some point these ridiculous prices will adjust. Maybe not crash, but adjust back to where they should be. Let me see if anybody know where Clive is. If you have 3 houses, it's time for Rolex. Well, it depends on what his finances are like. Are all 3 houses paid off? I mean, yeah, I would say if he's got everything paid off, if he has no debt, and he has a significant income, then yeah, spend 1 week's salary on a Rolex. So let's say he makes $2,000 a week, right? You can go out and you can buy a date just for $2,000. I've seen them. So use that as a starter watch, right? And then flip it for $2,800 or whatever, right? And then get yourself a $2,800 watch. Then flip that and work yourself up. That's how I did it back in the day. I went from one watch to the other and slowly worked myself up to a used day date. And then I got rid of that and got a better day date and so on. And then that's the way it goes. The person I know was buying super cheap, fixing up and renting out houses in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is a college town. Well, there you go. That's right. And if he's still doing that, you might want to work with him for a little while and, give him some elbow grease in exchange for him showing you how it's done and maybe finding a buy that you guys can go in together like 50-50 or something to get you started, right? Nothing wrong with having an investor work with you to get started, and you kind of leverage your youth and your elbow grease. My sister and brother-in-law had 5 houses, all rentals except their residence. They would never consider wearing a Rolex. Well, there you go. Well, some people don't care about having something like a Rolex on their wrist. That's fine. That's fine. That's not nothing. Rolex is not for everybody. So, let me check my, oh, and this, I was also asked in one of the comments about marketing, about Grand Seiko paying me money. He basically asked, you know, how much is Grand Seiko paying me to shill their watches, right? To talk about watches that I really don't like, but I'm doing it just because they're paying me, right? Okay, so I responded to him. I said, I wish, LOL, right? I mean, here's the thing about Grand Seiko. And I don't know about Seiko itself, but Grand Seiko I can speak to. They are clueless when it comes to branding and marketing. They know how to build a watch. They know how to build a fantastic watch, right? But the folks at the main office of Grand Seiko, I think it's up in New Jersey, have no clue when it comes to branding and marketing. I would have probably just named it GS. I would have probably just left the Grand Seiko right off the dial. I would have probably just put GS on there and referred to them as a GS model, such and such, a GS model, thus and such, right? That would have been a fine brand. And then I would do smart things to market them like Rolex does. And I would pay me if I were them. I'd pay me and I'd supply me with different watches and all to wear and talk about and so forth. Absolutely. I think that would be a good move. But they don't. They don't because they're clueless. So there's that. Now, Steve has a clue. He's the AD that I work with at Little Treasury Jewelers, and he did the watch event, and he hired me to do some videos for him, and I did some videos for him, and they did well, and they got him a bunch of customers. So he's done some things, but it really shouldn't be on him to do all the promotion of Grand Seiko. I mean, really, Grand Seiko should step up and do something. But instead, they had like an event in New York where some of the higher ups are singing karaoke and they couldn't sing worth a damn. And the event was like a total disaster. So yeah, they don't have a clue. But they know how to make great watches. And so the benefit to us that they don't have a clue is we can buy the watches cheap. You buy them used, right? You get a good deal. Even new, you can get a discount. So to me, as a buyer, it's a good thing that they don't have a clue. I'll just say that. Because again, I don't care about resale value. I didn't buy this to resell it. I bought it to wear it. I mean, and again, if your concern is resale value, then you should rethink that whole thing because you shouldn't be buying it in the first place. My sister and brother-in-law have 5 houses, all rentals except their residence. They would never consider, okay, I already read that. I'll get a day when I feel I'm ready. Oh, wait a second here. I would rather invest and make money while I'm young. Absolutely, Simon. Absolutely. They have tiny houses in San Francisco. They are called transient tents and converted brook closets. There you go. And Maddox says, sister and her husband eventually lost everything. If they had some Rolex, they could have had something to give their kids. The kids probably aren't going to care about the Rolex. And if they lost everything, that was probably poor planning. So no, the Rolex is not your savior financially. That's why, you all are broke. So there's that. Craig, what was it that got you started in your interest with watches? My interest started by getting my dad's gold Omega, learning about mechanical movements. I was impressed with engineering. So I did, when I was young, my uncle gave me a Seiko Bell-O-Matic, believe it or not. This was like 1973, something like that. And it was cool. You know, it had the alarm that you could put set and all, and it was you wound up the alarm. The watch itself was self-winding. It was cool, and it had an integral bracelet, which I didn't really like, but all in all, it was a cool watch. And then I think I was 18 when I got my first Rolex. I just have always liked quality items. Uh, it's just the way it is. And then we got into Rolexes, me and a couple of my friends, and we were buying and selling some of them and so on. And so, yeah, the rest is history. I've kind of had them for 40 years. Have you ever wondered why they say this is a JDM or Japanese market only, but all the type on the face is in English? Good question. Good question. English is kind of the international language of business. So it's probably smart to do that, because if the person's traveling and all that, I mean, it probably makes sense to have it in English. And most affluent people do speak English. So they are the target audience to buy them. So probably makes some sense. If GS had a clue on marketing, the prices would go up because they probably can't increase their supply. I hope they don't get good at marketing. I hear you, David, but I'm pretty set. I've already got mine, so it doesn't bother me if they go up in price. I mean, I've already secured my 2 watches that will probably take me through to where I'm 6 feet under. Would probably be my guess. I think I've got the rest of my life covered. I'm always puzzled by that. Okay, all the high-end makers are selling watches for way too much. Example, it costs Rolex about 500 to 1,000 to make a watch. They should be 2 to 3,000. Yeah, but they got to pay for all that advertising, Robert. I mean, they spend a ton of money on advertising. And then, of course, their ADs get a big cut. On the steel watches, I think they get about 30 or 35%, depending on the model. And on the gold watches, I think they get about almost 50% goes to the AD. So there's that. Broom closets, excuse me. So there's a lot of people making a lick on that watch, is I guess my point when it's sold. JDM doesn't really mean much, and oftentimes it's just a minor difference from the international market. But sometimes they're not even available internationally. Let's hope GS doesn't get a clue. I don't want a bunch of knockoffs flooding the market, although you can't fake a GS. I like having a watch that is top quality that everyone doesn't have. Good point. And they might sometime eventually figure out how to fake a spring drive. That'd be tough. I think they could fake, obviously they could fake the quartz. They could put a cheaper quartz movement in there, and you know, unless you opened it up, you wouldn't know it wasn't a 9F. So they could easily fake that. They could probably fake the mechanical movement. The spring drive would be the hardest one, but they could probably figure it out. Your diver looks great today. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing freaking watch. So comfortable. I mean, I'm so surprised that so many reviewers don't talk about comfort on the wrist, right? They talk about the look of it. They talk about the clasp. They talk about all kinds of things, but rarely do they talk about comfort on the wrist. And to me, that's the most important thing, because after all, it's a wristwatch. You're going to be wearing it. I wear this 24 hours a day. Take it off when I shower, but you know, it's on my wrist all the time, unless I switch over to the gold stunner, which I don't even have with me down here. Let's see. I'm wondering how many guys get expensive watches because they think it will help them with the ladies. Good luck with that. 23 years of wearing a Rolex. I think maybe 1 to 2 women have had a clue as to what it was. Here's the thing with the ladies, David. If the watch is part of an entire package, in other words, you're well-dressed, you have a decent car, but not necessarily a flashy car, that might turn them off, but a decent car, you have a really nice home, they love a nice home, especially a nice kitchen, okay? So if you have all of those things, and the watch is just part of the overall, they want to see that you have your act together, okay? And if these are all signals that you've got your act together, then, and I'm not talking about just a fling, just like a one-night stand or something like that. I'm talking about somebody you might want to make a nest with, right? They want to see that you have your act together and that you can take care of them. And if it's part of that overall package, then I think you're okay. But if it's just like you have, if all you have is the Rolex and you're wearing like a hoodie and stuff, and you got like all your money in the watch, they're going to think, well, this guy's an idiot. Manufacturers charge what the market will bear. Absolutely, and their expert marketing and all allows them to get the high prices. They've created what appears to be an exclusive club, and you got to pay all the money to get it forged in fire on the TV. Yeah, that's what I was watching before we went live. Yeah, there's something that feels a little dirty about paying a huge markup on a product. Oops, just on a product, and knowing you are paying the company to advertise to you. Good point. But that is part of the value that you're buying, is you're buying that prestige that they've created, right? They've created that allure and that prestige, and it's a status symbol, and you're basically paying for that. Most reviewers speak what the audience wants to hear. There you go. Good point. Frequently, when it is stated the product is Japan market only, it's hard to get in the U.S. That would indicate to me that they were not really ever meant to be worn in the U.S. Don't know why the copy wouldn't be. Okay, I'm not sure what that. I know the SBDC 007, when I bought it, was a Japanese market only watch, and it was a fantastic watch. I loved that watch. I had it for a couple of years. Only the accuracy was the only reason why I got rid of it. Why do you have a Google watermark top left corner? Because this is a Hangout on Air. And when you do the Hangout on Air, they put that watermark on there. Anybody who thinks a watch will get you laid probably explains why the guys are single. Well, being single can be okay. I mean, trust me, you can, if you're married to the wrong individual, that can be a nightmare. So sometimes single is okay too. A watch to me is a tool, has to be waterproof, accurate, anti-magnetic, and can take the odd accidental knock. Yeah, that was interesting. Tim was talking about, he was talking about a spring drive, I think. And he was talking about, you really should take it off if you're doing anything where it's going to get like, really slammed on something or whatever. I mean, we never took any of our watches off. I'm not going to take this watch off. I mean, if I'm doing something like hammering something or whatever, where there's some shake and some percussion, I'm not going to take it off. If it fails doing stuff like that, again, it's gone. I won't put up with that. Watches should be able to handle any kind of everyday use, including shocks. And as far as magnetism, I think all the modern watches are good enough, unless you're in a situation where you're really putting them in harm's way. You work around big machinery, big magnets, or something unusual. I never worried about magnetism problems on any of my watches in the last 40 years. And I didn't have a Milgauss, put it that way. In general, dressing like a slob and wearing a Rolex doesn't impress a lot of women. Watches to women in general are accessories to outfits, not the centerpieces. Good point. 7.25 inches. Yeah, that's what my wrist is. It swells up more than that sometimes. It'll go up as much as 7.5 if it's a hot, humid day. But in the wintertime, like now, it's down to about 7.25. Yeah. So probably a tad too small if you have a flat wrist. It wouldn't look as small if you have a rounder wrist. Okay. I don't know what that was an answer to. Craig, is 34 mil too small for men's watch? Okay, that was, I guess, what the That does, I think, depend on the size of your wrist. I think if your wrist is 6 3/4 or smaller, I think that would probably be okay. But if your wrist is 7 inches or bigger, I would go with the 36 mil, just because there's so many Rolexes that are 36 mil that you can get that you don't really have to go 34 mil. The best tool to get a lady is get yourself a dog. Women talk to me all the time when walking our dog. Well, Steve, they might be also attracted to you. You know, you might be all that, and they're just using the dog as a excuse. And if you don't have the dog with you, they don't have that excuse, so they don't know, they're tongue tied and they don't know what to do, right? So they just like freeze and don't do anything because you're like so awesome, right? So that could be what's going on there. I got an awesome deal on a Rolex Date 34, 2200 with box. Well, there you go. Do you like it? How does it look? Can you send us a picture of it on your wrist? Are you going to keep it, or is it a flipper? I definitely think that's that's smart. If you keep flipping it and work your way up to a so see if you can flip it for a profit and work your way up, get a 36 mil next time. I will not risk damaging my watches by working in them. I like them too much and don't want the hassle of repair. Excellent listener. I never had a problem with having to repair my watches. I didn't take them off. Now, sometimes if I was doing something under the hood of a car and I was literally going to be banging it against things, I might take it off and put it in my pocket just for, you know, a short period of time, and then I'd put it back on. But most of the time, the watches were on our wrists. And I'm talking about our steel beater watches, which were usually like GMT Masters or a sub or something like that. That was the whole point of them, was to have something that you could wear and could take a beating. So yeah, life is too short to not be wearing your watch. You probably shouldn't buy the watch if you're not going to wear it. That's what I say. And trust me when I say life is short. You're going to like that, and like 30 years is going to go by. Craig, you might want to walk that white belly goat to attract the ladies. Oh my God, that goat would probably like gore them. I mean, he's a little bit on the mean side, that one. I'd probably take the black one. 34 mil is small for a man's watch, but historically that was a good choice. I think it depends on the size of your wrist. I think if your wrist is 6 3/4 or smaller, I think it would be fine. Absolutely. The reason that a lot of these watches look small on people now is because so many people are making ridiculously big watches. That's A. And B, people are generally fatter now and have bigger wrists, you know, because of the obesity problem. So there's a lot of people that have really big wrists. So they put like a 36 mil date just on their wrist and it looks small because their wrist is so overgrown, right? In which case they should probably stop eating so many donuts. With which brush you use for shaving? Yeah, I only have one right now. Let me go and find it here. And then we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. I didn't hear anything from Clive, so I'm using Vikings blades, by the way, and I'm using, it's from The Art of Shaving, their Badger brush. It was $60 on Amazon. So that's what I'm using. And I'm using Colonel Conk, C-O-N-K, shave soap is what I've been using. I also have some Henry Cavendish Himalaya shaving soap that I haven't tried yet. So that's what I have so far. Okay. Best beater watch, G-Shock, can run over it with a truck. G-Shocks, yeah, I had one of those for a while. But you know, a good high quality sport watch, either Grand Seiko or Rolex, should be able to take anything that you throw at them. I mean, they should be fine. I've heard people say that running while wearing a watch will hurt it. Sounds like, yeah, it's ridiculous. These people have too much time on their hands. Um, Life is short, short. Enjoy your good health. Absolutely. My stuff all looks like new. Like to maintain it like new. Okay. So the next person that gets it will be able to enjoy it, and you will have preserved it for them, like the little old lady that buys the furniture and keeps the plastic covers on it. And then the next guy that buys it gets to enjoy it. That's good that you're preserving it for the next owner. Personally, I'd rather enjoy it myself. Hey, Craig, do you want to buy a Rolex date 34? No. No. If I was going to buy a Rolex, it would probably be a turnograph like we talked about yesterday, but I don't need it. It would just be a totally frivolous purchase. Those moccasin type shoes that you have, can any of them be resold like a Goodyear well sold? Usually they have a layer of leather that is sewn on, and then they have like some sort of a sole that's glued onto that. So yes, that sole can be removed and a new one just put right on there. You typically would not have to remove the leather piece to do that. So that's the way they are. Yeah. So yes, to answer your question, now some of the boat shoes do have a stitched on sole. In which case, yes, they would have to stitch on a new sole, but some of them are glued on to a piece of leather. And so they probably would grind them off, right? And they just put a new one on there. But I have so many pairs that I had one pair repaired that way, and the guy did a good job because it was a pair of Timberlands that I bought like 30 years ago, and I really liked them. So I had him resole them, and he did a great job on it. There's a video about them on my channel. But I have so many other pairs that in rotation that I do have one pair that the heel's starting to get run over, and that I might have something done. He might be able to cut that out and just put a new piece in there. I got a good shoe guy that can probably do that. Archie Luxury has a wrist that almost anything looks small. He is a proud, obese nutball. There you go. He was on a reduction program there for a little while. Maybe he gave up on it. Should grow a beard. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with a beard. I tried letting everything grow for a few days, and then I start like itching, and so I don't know if I would get over that. But I think it looks a little bit sloppy to have a beard, personally. More live stream tomorrow. I might do another live stream tomorrow. I'd like to get Clive in to do some planning on a show that we've been talking about doing, but he didn't answer my email, so I don't know. You should grow a beard and grow your hair out and wear it a tight ponytail. Well, there you go. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, and my vintage Omega and Longines looks fine. Oh, excuse me, folks, as they are dress watches. Well, there you go. 35 mil. Yeah, my dress watch is 35 mil. Yeah, if you're wearing a long sleeve shirt with a barrel cuff or something, or a French cuff or something, that's going to look fine, I think. But that's a whole different discussion, the dress watches. I don't know much about watches, but I think you're using the term mil like it's sort of a millimeter. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what. Oh, Clyde is in the house. There you go. Clive is in the house. Clive, do you want to join us briefly to discuss the future of life? Let me know, and I'll send you the link. Check out Clive's Christmas present. I'm preserving my stuff for myself. I like to look like new all the time. I don't care. Hey, here's the thing, excellent listener. If you've got like a date 8 or something like that, that looks heavily worn and heavily used, that's impressive, man. That's like, hey, I don't give a, you know what, I actually wear my date 8, right? Like the date 8 that Jack Nicklaus has, right? The bezel's worn, you know, it's really looks awesome. To have a watch that's actually used. Check your email, Clive. He sent you a link. Well, I didn't send a link yet to this. I'll send him one. I sent him an email asking him if he could come in, but I'll send him the link if he can come in. Let me send it right now. Let's see. Oh, shoot. Hangout link. Okay, I'm sending it. All right. Still don't like operating with a laptop without a keyboard and all that stuff. I can do it, but it's just not fun. Okay, so we'll see if he comes in, but let me go back to the comments in the meantime. Blue, Craig, Clive, Archie, all 3 live. So Archie's live. I'll put the link in here in case any of you guys are on a computer and you want to jump in, but you got to be on a real computer with, you know, not a garbage setup, and no foul language. Okay, so send me the link. Yeah, I sent it, Clive, via email. So you really never really own you should really look after it for the next flipper. Yeah, I've heard that. That's great. For the next person that's going to enjoy it, right, is what you do. So Clive is in the house. Clive, I'm going to leave it on auto switching so that when you talk, it's going to cut to you. And I'm going to be maintaining the an eye in the chat as well. But just to give you a recap, we talked about the fact that Grand Seiko are clueless when it comes to marketing, because I was asked on one of my videos, you know, how much Grand Seiko is paying me to shill for them. And I said, I wish, LOL, right?
Right.
They are totally clueless, and they should be paying me. You know, no doubt about that. They should be paying me to shill for them, but they don't. And we talked about how that's a real benefit
To shill for them.
to people that want to buy them. You know, that they don't, you don't have to pay that, all that markup that comes along with the extraordinary marketing that Rolex does.
Right.
So there's that. And then we also talked about using your, what I think you do is you buy smart. You go to places like a pawn shop or whatever, and you buy that Datejust or whatever the heck it is, that they don't have as much of a clue about what it is as you do. And then
right,
you get a good
because
buy.
obviously nothing says luxury watch transaction than 2 heavily armed people in an alley behind a Starbucks.
There you go. So are you willing to share with the audience a few tips on these guys that are on a budget that want to get into these watches, but let's say they want to start low and buy some and flip them and work their way up to something, you know, higher dollar, if they want to go that route? Would you have any tips?
Well, you know, actually, I just took a bath and my hair is just all effed up. Screw it. Mark Goldberg just released a nice video on his channel about buying from the pros and cons about buying from used dealers, the gray market, Craigslist, and eBay. And that would also, when Craig's done with his live stream, that's a good place to look for. Now I think Mark's forte is going into eBay.
Okay.
And then looking at, not for the, of course, some people like to snipe. When you're kind of sitting there, you've got everything lined up and you're just waiting for the auction to end. You've got your maximum price with a good internet connection. Then you click on like 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully the person doesn't have, hopefully the other people competing don't have enough time to respond and outbid you and, go along at the last minute and snatch one up. Another possibility is to use Buy It Now offers on Fleabay, and especially the ones where they have Make an Offer. And I think Mark talks about that. I've used that one a couple of times.
Absolutely. I've got some of my best buys on other things, not on watches, but where somebody will list like a lavalier mic like the one I'm using, and they'll list it at a Buy It Now price that's artificially low. And what I've done on eBay is I've saved various searches for things that I buy routinely, right? Like I'm always buying these lavalier mics. I always need them for a client or whatever. And so I save the search. And so I'll get an email when one pops in. And if it's a good price, I just snag it, before somebody else has had a chance to snag it. So is that how you got the Air King?
No, actually, I got the Air King locally off Craigslist.
Well, there you go. Absolutely.
But, no, unfortunately, I have to focus the camera back on myself, so I'll have to take it off the nice, soft Sybil Shepherd focus. But the thing is, when you do that, make sure you know what you're looking at. Always, always, always have a watchsmith that you can go to. Have the person, authenticate, especially with Craigslist.
Mm-hmm. Probably meet them at the jeweler, and if they're not willing to do that, then it's a scam already.
Exactly. No, I think, because if they'll either pit off all sorts of concerns or excuses. If they'll meet you at the jeweler or a watchsmith, at least they believe that the watch is authentic. Now, one time there was a couple of numbnuts who actually thought, and they were, the AD took one look at it and said, "Hell no."
Yeah, folks in the chat, can you let me know if you're getting any feedback when Clive talks, if that's coming through my lav mic or not? I've got him at a relatively low volume on my laptop, but I could connect my AirPods and listen to him that way if you're getting feedback. So just let me know if there's any feedback when he talks, if it looks like it's coming through my lav mic as well. Good to know. What about pawn shops? There's a guy that does some videos that talks about that's kind of how he buys most of his watches. Unfortunately, I forget his handle now, but he actually works on watches too, and he buys a lot of them that way.
Are you talking about Fernando with collecting vintage watches?
It might be. It might be.
Kind of Latino.
When he's there, he's got like his workbench behind him and stuff.
And the sign behind him says, "We buy junk and sell antiques."
That might be him, yeah.
Yeah, that's Fernando. Pawn shops, yeah. But again, you have to make sure. But sometimes you've got pawn shops that are really sharp and they know what they're dealing with, and you have people that are numbnuts. Now, over here where I'm at, there's the used watch dealer, Cheap Charlie. I'm not going to say the name of his business because I'll be goddamned if I'm going to give him any advertising. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. But what he does is that he has a backdoor deal with a lot of the bigger places. The guy really knows his stuff with Rolex. Mm-hmm. So he'll authenticate Rolex if someone's wanting to pawn it, and he'll have the card on the back, and one of his cards will have the reference number and the serial number, which is his way of saying this is legit. In return, the pawn shops, if they run across someone who's wanting to actually sell the watch outright, they'll send them to Charlie.
Gotcha. But you can't get a great deal from him because he knows what he's doing, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, he'll if he has any halfway decent deals, he'll pit them on eBay.
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to sell them out of the shop.
Well, that's interesting, because if he sold it to you for cash, he wouldn't have to pay the eBay tax. And eBay
I
takes
think
a
it's
chunk.
just what?
eBay takes a big chunk.
Oh, I know, but I think it's just one of those things about it's just upholding a standard, because once people I mean, how do I put it? If people view him as wheeling and dealing,
Mm-hmm.
then it's bad enough for people trying to come in and lowball him anyway. But yeah, I would agree.
Now, let me ask you a question about your internet connection. Are you connected via Wi-Fi? Are you on a laptop now?
I'm on a laptop, Wi-Fi.
How far away is the router to where would it be possible for you to hook up? Not now, but in the future, to hook up with a Cat5 cable?
Possibly, yeah.
Because I think you're going to see much better quality than using the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi like comes and goes, and it's like,
Yeah.
The thing about Wi-Fi is when they first came up with that spectrum to use for that purpose, Wi-Fi is like a garbage spectrum that nobody wanted. And so the FCC gave that spectrum to the people that were going to be making these wireless routers and all, and said, here, have at it, no problem. Nobody else wants this spectrum anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it basically is garbage spectrum. And so that's why even the best Wi-Fi connections aren't even, close to a wired Cat5 connection.
Well, and like I said, I've got like a streaming box on my TV that is hardwired into the router is right there by the streaming box and the TV. They're both hardwired in, but this is just far enough away. That's maybe about 20, 25 feet.
Not terribly far. Cat5 cable is cheap, and if you can get it fished over to there without it being like in the middle of the floor, so you like trip on it and break your neck, right?
Right.
If you in one of my rooms up north, I actually had to put it underneath the carpet, the Oriental carpet, right? Because I couldn't drill holes and all that. But you can buy these flat Cat5 cables that are stone cold flat, right? That are perfect for that. So there's various ways you can do that. So I'm going to talk to my jeweler connection, Little Treasury Jewelers. He is a Grand Seiko dealer and an Omega dealer. He's not a Rolex dealer, but he also deals in a bunch of other watches, Oris and a bunch of others. So I'm going to be talking to him after the first of the year to see if he would like to be part of like a watch roundtable discussion. So if you want to put out some feelers to anybody that you can think of that might want to join in on something like that, and maybe we'll start by doing it like once a month or something.
Possibly.
And just to see if we can get a group of people together that can answer people's questions and that can talk about what they're up to and show some watches. And there seems to be some interest. So.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, I want to be selective about putting out, or I might start getting a reputation.
Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. But they want you. As soon as I go live, they start immediately asking, when is Clive going live? I mean, and they really make me feel like garbage, right? But it doesn't bother me. I've got a thick skin.
Right.
But yeah, every fourth comment is, and when is Clive going to go live so we can like jump over there, right? So there's that. So let me go back to the comments and see.
Okay.
See if they're all actually, like totally happy.
Also, you're talking about buying from Craigslist or whatnot. Get information about the watch. Get information about the seller as well.
Yeah, here's a comment about Fernando goes to flea markets, but he can work on watches with his skills. Some need servicing. Yeah, see, that's a big advantage he has is he can do some stuff to him and keep his costs down and then flip the puppy. Absolutely.
Well, I've also got the same thing here. I also know a couple of gray heads that are watchsmiths that are, I think I give me better than, I get flyover state pricing here.
Yeah.
So both on getting the pieces, on getting the piece of service as well.
Yeah, well, that's smart. I mean, you're taking a hobby where you have a lot of knowledge and you're leveraging that as another revenue center.
Exactly.
Your watches are probably, at the end of the day, your watches are probably costing you nothing.
Well, not the Rolexes certainly, but I think a lot of the vintage ones, which I think are really cool and interesting, are almost next to nothing comparatively.
Here's a comment that's right on point. Aunt G says Craig has no idea. Well, there you go. You gotta applaud him for a succinct, truthful, accurate comment. This show is far more intelligent and refined than Archie. So that would kind of contradict the previous comment. Nice to hear. Nice not to hear begging for money. Okay, guys, if you want me to read your comment, send a super chat.
No,
oh my God.
Well, I need to actually turn it off. I need to figure out how to turn it off in my settings because I think they're damn distracting, quite frankly.
The super chats? Well, yeah, because they're asking you to take your clothes off and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that can be a big problem for you.
No, not really. It's even more. No, they're not. They're damn. What you see? I'm coming through on the camera, right?
Yeah.
No one's asking me to take my clothes off. Hell no, son. But no, what I'm saying is, what's annoying about it is that it's people that think they have a right to jump in the middle of a conversation because they're throwing money.
Yeah.
And I kind of think, that super chats should. I mean, reading comments on the air should be as a matter of merit on the individual comments, not on just people, throwing money at the channel.
Yeah, but Archie needs the money. Right.
Well, and the thing is, I actually think he doesn't really give much of a damn unless you're giving him money.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Okay, so Blue says, ha ha ha, laughing my what off. Cool, Clive. Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Clive has the cool stuff down pat. See, that's what we were talking about earlier, Clive. We were talking about the watch is just one part of the whole look, the persona, right? And here's a perfect example. Clive's got a sharp looking shirt on. He looks sharp. He's got a baby clothes shave. And he's wearing like a really killer watch. And so that just makes the whole presentation, takes it up a notch, right? If he was wearing like a worn out hoodie, then he wouldn't look as sharp. So think about that, folks.
Well, no, actually, my hair is messed up. I just got out of the bathtub, and I was actually going to lie down and take a bit of a quick nap. I have not shaved, and the watch is nice, but this is kind of counteracted by the fact that the older you get, the less you care. Really, the less you care.
I can tell you this right now, Clive. When you hit my age, it's all downhill from there. Okay. And I had a guy put a comment on one of my videos where I mentioned that. He says, no, that's not true. You're only 61, you're like in the beginning of whatever, you're the end of middle age, the beginning. He tried to make me believe that I'm still young, but I know the aches and pains. And I used to play tennis, and the next day I'd be completely recovered. Didn't even know I played. Now it takes 2 or 3 days. So that's the difference. The recovery time is significantly longer. And sometimes if you bruise yourself, the bruise never goes away. So there's that. But other than that, Yeah, it's all good.
And the old injuries start coming back. You know, that car wreck you had when you had whiplash back when you were 25, you start feeling it a little bit. It starts turning into the beginnings of arthritis once you start hitting 50 or older.
Old injuries, absolutely. Absolutely, that's true too. So it's all good. But all these youngsters, they'll probably have cures for all of this when they get to be our age. They'll probably have just a pill you take and it'll just kill all your arthritis. And that'll take care of that.
Possibly. Now, I'm also getting some text from the neighbor chick over here. So,
yeah, she wants you to come over for dinner.
No, her dad's over there. So, nah.
Okay.
No, not for a couple of days, but maybe kind of setting it up for a little bit after the holidays, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any other pearls of wisdom you want to share on the subject matter? We were talking about watches retaining value.
Mm-hmm.
And the comment that I tried to make was, if you're buying a new steel sport Rolex for list or over, and you're worried about it retaining its value, you probably shouldn't be buying it in the first place. You probably should be doing like we just discussed, getting a real deal on something that you can then make money on and work your way up.
Or, you see, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking more about, instead of actually appreciation, I'm just thinking loss mitigation. I think, to me, if you get into a piece, you like it and you enjoy it, you fall out of love with it, and you get out of it and you don't lose money, I actually think at that point you're still ahead, because it's basically a free toy.
Yeah, but you didn't make whatever money you would have made on that money during that time. So it's a lost opportunity. Whereas if you use that same money to buy a watch that you fixed up a little bit or whatever, or that you just got a good buy on. I remember when I used to buy watches, that was back when you'd buy them out of the newspaper, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody would put an ad in the Washington Post and you'd call them and you'd be like the first one to call them. And we got the papers, like we got the Saturday paper like the Friday night before, right?
Right.
And so we could call them and we'd be like one of the first people to call them and get out there and buy the watch. And that's how I got the best buys that I got. But I have to believe that people can do the same thing now using Craigslist and other tools, because a seller, it's not that easy to sell some of these things.
No.
So if they've got a buyer in hand with cash, they're likely to say, yeah, let's do this deal.
Well, and sometimes it's just being a little bit more tenacious than the rest. This guy was in a neighboring city within my state, but like a couple hours away.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, there's a little network of people we have. I've got some buddies up in Tulsa. I said, hey, there's this in Tulsa. Take a look at it if you want to. And this person got back with me and said, by the way, it's a 2017 Air King complete kit, box papers, even the original receipt, even the credit card receipt, for Pete's sake, on it.
Mm-hmm.
And $5,200, that's $1,000 below retail. And if you include sales tax, it's roughly a 25% discount on like a new watch.
Yeah.
So
now, how old was the watch?
1 year old.
1 year old. Okay.
They only started making this in 2016. It was announced in Baselworld 2016.
Okay.
So the guy gets back to me and said, I emailed him, and it took him for him to get back to me. I was actually saying, I'll meet your asking price. Your asking price is reasonable, but he didn't really seem to know the ADs around here in this nearby town. I'm like, well. So I emailed him. I said, hey, here's my number. I'm an hour away, but I'm swamped with email from work. Text works a lot better.
Yeah.
So we would text back and forth, and it took a couple of days because I would send him something and then like an hour later and vice versa. And So the other guy was getting a fishy, you know, his not Gator, but his Scamdar was going off.
Mm-hmm.
And actually this other fellow said, I'm going to be over where you're at either Wednesday, Wednesday and Thursday. I've got to be meeting with people, but I can make some time either late Wednesday or early Thursday. So late Wednesday. So we're talking a little bit, and as it turns out, he worked for Toyota USA. He was previously working out of Houston, which is where he bought the watch. He's recently transferred up to my state, living in Tulsa. And what he does is that he goes around in conferences with all the Toyota dealerships in the area.
Yeah.
And of course, so we, the AD checked it out. And so we went to his car to complete the transaction, of course.
So wait, how did he come to your area to go to the AD?
Yeah, because he was meeting with Toyota dealerships in Oklahoma City.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's just like, and of course, new sticker tag on the back, paper tag, Toyota USA, Toyota, whatever, Southwest Toyota USA or whatever. So, nice little Evel on his company car. The story, once you get those facts, the story checks out. So in other words, it wasn't Scamdar. It's also explaining, well, my oldest is going through flight school and he's coming back in and he needs a little bit more tuition.
Yeah.
So instead of Scamdar, it's a busy guy, high pressure job, flipping a watch to make a couple, not his only luxury timepiece, not his most treasured one. Just trying to make a couple of bucks for his kid. He
just needed cash for the tuition, and you were the guy with the cash. Can you give us another close-up of it?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna go. I found it. I can. All right, and I'll have to adjust my camera manually, but not too bad.
Yeah, I think that's a cool watch. I really do. I like the Air King. Now, is that 39 mil?
40.
40, okay.
It's basically the same guts as the Milgauss.
Exactly. Now, it's a little bit thick. Isn't it like 13 mils thick?
Yep. Because it has the Faraday cage. Yeah, the Faraday cage like the Milgauss.
Yeah. But that's a cool watch. And it's more affordable than the Milgauss, and I think it's every bit as good.
Well, okay. Here's my thing. I was actually talking to Jake Ehrlich about it. Let me focus the camera manually again.
What camera are you using, by the way?
Oh, hell, I can't figure out. It's not the one that comes on the MacBook. It's 1080p full HD webcam, professional webcam.
And it actually has a focus ring on it or something, huh?
Yeah, it does.
That's cool. It looks good, yeah.
Well, I need to.
When the signal,
maybe I need to soften the focus a little bit. Look like that.
When the signal's not cutting out because of your Wi-Fi, it's good. I'll put it that way. When you get a solid signal, I think it's going to be that much better. Yeah, you definitely have it. You definitely have the Elizabeth Taylor Vaseline on the lens look going on now.
And by the way, if you've just tuned in, you're not just coming out of a blackout. This is the Craig Shipp Show. Well, and the funny part is about the watch. They just introduced it in 2016. Oh, also, unlike the Milgauss, it doesn't have the polished center links, which I don't like the polished center links.
I don't like those at all. Not on an Oyster.
No, not on a sports watch.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. It looks tacky.
Exactly.
And talk about scratch magnets.
Now, unfortunately, some watches have to have polish because, especially the two-tones.
So somebody's asking, where did your passion for watches start, and when, and where, and how? And
let me try to get the focus in on this one a little bit nicer.
See, that's what I wore back in the day with a. Wait, is that a steel and gold?
Yep.
Okay, the gold is not showing up as much, but yeah, there it is. Yeah. I wore an all steel one with a Jubilee bracelet.
Well, in the GMT, this is a 1675 GMT Master 1 two-tone. It's got a gold nipple dial.
Yeah.
And it's got two of my favorite things in life, gold and Rolex.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm thinking about keeping an eye open for a turnograph in all gold. One of the older ones.
Mm-hmm. They're getting tricky too. It used to be those are cheapest chips, but now everyone's kind of glommed onto those as well because that it's a date just, it's a sporty date just.
Absolutely. Yeah, we saw a steel and gold one yesterday. We looked at one on, on the channel here, and it was like $6,000 or something for steel and gold, and it was pretty nice looking.
Well, true, but I think I got my little two-tone, my gold nipple for a couple of years back for 56, and I thought I overpaid for it at the time.
Okay, so they want, and we're going to wrap up after this. They want your story about how you got into watches, the backstory.
Well, just looking, of course, just like everyone else, I had watched when I was younger, low tier basically, and everything else, kind of junk, and just got to the habit of looking on phones. Okay, it's actually through the Apple Watch.
Really?
Yeah.
So you've only been into the watches for a few years now.
Yeah, actually.
The Apple Watch just came out, what, 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Right.
Because I bought the first one that came out. I still have it.
No, I recently upgraded. I got a version 3 about a year ago. But and the thing is, though, they interviewed Swiss CEOs when the Apple Watch came. They basically asked what Swiss watch company executives, are you scared about the Apple Watch? Are you scared that Apple's going to take your business? And the response a lot of them had was, no, we're excited about the Apple Watch. They said our biggest fear, our biggest enemy is not the smart watch. Our biggest enemy is the cell phone. It's the smartphone.
And and I think we did talk about this once before, but and also the biggest enemy is the concept of you don't need a watch, period. Just that concept that a watch isn't cool anymore. You don't need it on your wrist. You've got your phone, and so for Apple to shoot some holes in that and say, no, you really should have a watch. Then now people like you and me start thinking about, okay, so what other watches would we want to have on our wrist? So, but I've been wearing them. I didn't stop wearing them. When I got the Apple Watch, what I did was I had the Apple Watch and the date in rotation. The Apple Watch was my sport watch.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first videos I did on the Apple Watch, I compared the Apple Watch to Rolex and other high-end watches as far as quality, right? And I was making the argument that it's very high quality. And I have the one with the link bracelet, and the bracelet's nice.
Yeah.
And so, and all kinds of haters came in there and oh, how can you possibly compare the quality of the Apple Watch? I said, have you seen one? It's a high quality piece.
I've also got the link bracelet, and I think it's wonderful. I think they do it as well or better than anything else in the Swiss watch industry. I think the Swiss watch industry should look and see how Apple does that bracelet and copy it.
Absolutely. And so yeah, I wore it for like 2 years in rotation with the Rolex. And then I got the, I'm trying to remember now. How many years ago did the Apple Watch come out? Do you remember? Was it 5 years ago or?
Alexa, when did the Apple Watch premiere?
Apple Watch was created on April 24th, 2015.
3 years ago.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember now. I might have I'm trying to remember when I got the SBDC 007, the titanium Seiko diver, because I wore that for 2 years in rotation with the date. And so I probably wore it first. And then when the Apple Watch came out, that's probably when I put that into rotation and sold the SBDC 007. And then I'd already heard about the Grand Seikos, and when I learned that there was a dealer in my area, I finally made the trek over and looked at the Grand Seikos, and then of course I bought the Grand Seiko Diver, and so now that's in rotation. And the Apple Watch is kind of parked, but I'm still thinking about getting the new Apple Watch at some point, because they made it thinner and they made it a little bit bigger, but they made it thinner. So I'm thinking about that at some point. But okay, so really you've gotten into these relatively recently.
Well, my learning curve isn't exactly a flat line.
Yeah, well, I hear you. And so you kind of jumped in, and a couple of years ago, was it about the time you got the first Apple Watch?
Yeah.
So like actually, 3 years ago or something.
But you're talking about hints. Like I said, number one, know your subject matter. Number two, have a watchsmith ready to go. Make friends with the watch guys. Number three, have the cashola. Have your cashola in a safe, secure place where you can access it. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is look and find it at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, and realizing, crapola, my bank closes in 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, you got to have the cash on hand. And I actually, one of my most profitable websites is Frederick.com for Frederick County, Maryland. And I started out, I had FrederickCounty.com. And this was back in like 1999, right? And then a guy was selling Frederick.com, and he got jerked around by Frederick Magazine. And it was on a Sunday that he contacted me. I had already dropped out of the negotiations because his price was too high. And he contacted me on a Sunday and said, hey, listen, I'll take $5,000 for it. I'm so tired of messing with Frederick Magazine. If you'll give me $5,000, we'll do it. So we met. Let me kill this. So we met. Okay, so that's a German guy, obviously calling. So we met at a Roy Rogers on a Sunday afternoon, and I gave him cash money, and now it's my most profitable domain. So you're right. If you've got cash, that's the way to go. Absolutely, it rules still.
Yeah. Now if it's a couple of $1,000, make sure it's 20s. Because it looks more voluminous. There's something in our primate reptile minds that says, "Ooh, big pile of money." As a matter of fact, my office
just dealt in hundreds and 50s, but that's a good tip. Yeah.
If it's only a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my office manager was like going to buy, and it's just like, oh, I'm looking at like this Camry that's really good shape. They're wanting 22, but I'm going to offer 18. I said, well, or you taking? I said, no. Give me the hundreds. Here's a bunch of 20s. And it worked. Now, unfortunately, that would be nice for a watch, for a Rolex, but that would make it laborious counting out that many 20s to buy a Rolex.
Yeah, depending on how much money it was. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's hard to get that many 50s as well. They're not nearly as popular as hundreds.
Yeah, have various assortments of cash ready to go. Yeah, and I've had people tell me, well, you're not getting any interest on that. Well, if it was in the bank, I wouldn't be getting any interest anyway. I'm getting buying opportunities is what I'm getting.
Right.
And so that's why you want to have it. And it works both ways. When I was selling my motor coach, I had a couple come from Virginia, and it was a little over 30 grand, and they brought cash. And I was tickled pink. I let them use my tag to take it home. I mean, I was fine with that. And so, yeah, if you're a seller and somebody comes with cash, you're more likely to do the deal too. So it absolutely works both ways. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this up. Let's see if there's any last minute comments. You want to glance in the comments and see if there's anything?
Sure, I'll take a quick sticky beak. So sweet, GMT1, plastic toe pilot. Clive, would you have bought a Batman if it had full polished links? No. Turkey Vulture, sweet Christ, that's a 1675. Hey man, do not take my Rolex in vain. Let's see. Oh yeah, and also people are talking about the nipples. Yeah. So anyway, it's never too late. It's never too late to learn. Actually, and if you're starting out, go to watch channels like this one. Look at a blog to watch. Check everything from Hodinkee. Consume, synchronize, assimilate everything that you can. Because when it comes to buying or selling a watch, you can either spend time, time, effort, and money. And I found the more I spend on the first two, the less of the third one is involved.
Absolutely. And the comments that you made about the scammers is very important, because I remember back when I was buying watches, we didn't have anywhere near as big a problem with that. We didn't even think about it. If we were buying one from the Washington Post, for example, you typically go to their home. They're like in a real nice home in Bethesda, Maryland or something. And you just didn't worry about it. You just bought the thing, and there weren't as many scammers back then. And of course, to place an ad in the Washington Post, they kind of had to know who you were anyway. They knew they had a real phone number for you, these kinds of things, not a spoofed phone number. And so nowadays, you really have to give that scam part of the whole deal a lot more attention and a lot more weight than you did in the past.
Also, one quick tip about pawn shops. When a pawn shop first gets a watch, it thinks it's a jewelry store. It's not. Make sure you ask the hard questions. Does it come with box and papers? Has it been serviced? Do you offer any sort of a guarantee? But the longer it has a watch, and sometimes the prices that they ask for a watch are completely unreasonable, but the longer they have that watch, the more reasonable they start getting. Because at some point, they're quit worrying about giving every penny they can out of the watch, and they become more worried about just getting their money back that they gave out on the pawn plus the interest.
So that they can then do something else with that money. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thanks for popping in, and we'll talk again. And I'll let you know after I talk to Steve after the first of the year about that idea for doing a show, and then we'll see if we can figure something out. But I appreciate you popping in, and I know the people in the chat appreciate you popping in, because that's all they ask about. Carry on.
One of these days, Craig, one of these days they're going to have a grand Seiko in this area. I never see them. I never see them. I think that says a lot about the watch. Well,
I mean, like I said, I mean, it's in the description of this video. They're just absolutely clueless when it comes to marketing, and they've just started the last few years expanding into the U.S., adding some more ADs. I think they only have like a half a dozen or something in the whole country, and you're not going to see them anytime soon. I don't think. Not at the rate they're going. So you'll probably end up snagging one the same way you did that watch. You'll probably be somebody from Houston, right, that bought it at an AD down there and happened to be in your neck of the woods or something, and you can snag it cheap. So that, I'm sure that's what you'll do too. You'll snag it cheap, because that's what the watch wrangler does.
Yep.
So make sure to subscribe to Clive's channel and click the bell so that you'll get a notification when he goes live, so that you people won't have to constantly ask me when he's going live. You'll get a notification.
And happy holidays. And as they like to say over here close to Mexico, Feliz on my nads.
All right. Thanks again for joining us.